Alright, what is a furry? I've answered this question several times on videos and live streams, but ever since watching the Fandom documentary by Ash Coyote, I've kind of found that there isn't a simple meaning for what a furry is. I mean, yes, we have all sorts of definitions and the relative interests and hobbies, but rather, what does it mean to be a furry? Is a furry a hobby? Or is it more of an identity that people carry with them through life? Is it a phase that people constantly change and grow through with how they identify towards furries? Or is it a simple label for someone's infatuation with colorful cartoon animals? You could even use Uncle Kage's definition of the furry fandom, being a community of the most creative people on Earth, ranging from artists to dancers to musicians to all sorts of things, and that would still be a valid label. There are several different answers for what it means to be a furry, and some pretty good reasons for why people feel the way they do towards the fandom. Even though people's experiences and relationships with the fandom interests change over time, these quote-unquote phases make a lot more sense in hindsight. So let's talk about it, starting with the fandom being a simple interest or merely discovering its existence for the first time. Now, most of us have been there, where we've discovered the magical world of the furry fandom. You could have looked upon it with amazement and absolute awe, or absolute horror. I was originally in the group that looked on it with complete disgust and shame for the human race, and you can read that tone from some of my very, very old videos. But regardless of how you might have initially viewed furries, you made it here, and I'm strictly talking about people who are furries now, where they truly discovered what it meant to be a furry, tied it to some of their current infatuations with cartoon animals or other hobbies, and dove headfirst down the rabbit hole. So for most people who just started out as a furry or just discovered the fandom for the first time, a furry, more than likely to them, was just a hobby or interest that revolved around cartoon animals, which relates more to the normalized and mainstream definition of furries today. And that makes a lot of sense actually, because most new furries have just come from regular society and they've been trained to be more acquainted with, well, normality. It's sort of a spectrum or balance between abnormality and normality, or just weird, but I promise it'll make a lot more sense as we go through this. So it started as an interest and became a hobby. What now? Well, depending on your experiences and who you meet or befriend in the fandom, being a furry to you can go a few different ways. There are obviously the negative and positive ends where you can either come to love the fandom or come to hate it, but for the sake of this video, I want to focus on the positive end and a mid-path with the fandom remaining as a hobby or interest. The middle road portion of it is rather interesting in my opinion, and it's influenced by several good and bad aspects of the furry fandom, from the different experiences to the people you meet. And it's hard for me to fully understand that middle road personally, but from what I've come to learn from others is that the furry fandom might just be a come and go thing for some people. A lot of individuals join the fandom with the intention of making new friends through their shared interest in colorful cartoon animals and more. Maybe that initial sense of being awestruck from discovering the furry fandom wasn't really there for some people to begin with, and just the natural fascination of anthropomorphized cartoon animals is what brought them here in the first place. It could even be something as far as these people have found that group of lifelong friends, and that initial goal from coming into the fandom has been fulfilled. So what do they do then? It really just goes to show you how diverse the fandom is in the people that come and go. It isn't just one set of dedicated diehard fans, but a massive community of people from all sorts of backgrounds. And in this case, for the middle road, the passion might be there, as a hobby or interest or just as an escape from the real world, but it might not be as strong, just a temporary thing that takes up a fraction of their life, and that's okay. Now, with regards to the positive end of it, or rather the positive road through the fandom, you more than likely had some magical experiences, met some of the most wonderful friends in the world, and the mix of those things allowed your interest in furries to flourish into a passion, or even an identity from there. For most of those individuals, when they originally join, it's this magical place that they've never seen or heard of before, and those life-changing experiences and friendships build that initial interest in the fandom to an identifiable portion of their life, or just simply an identity that makes up who they are. Like, I'm a furry, my friends are furries, and this is what makes me truly happy. And that's why I've been using the word passion throughout this video, because the love that people might feel for the fandom from those experiences can lead furries to seeing the whole thing as more of a lifestyle or identity rather than just an escape or hobby. Even the idea of a fursona can give people this sense of comfort with someone who they want to be, but don't have the resources or environment to express it fully. There are so many different psychological aspects to the inner workings of fursonas, or even just personas as is, but the bottom line for most people is that it's some sort of creative outlet. And having a creative outlet, especially for the secretly or even reservedly creative and gifted individuals, allows for them to become more comfortable with being open about that creativity and sharing it with others. The whole concept of the fandom kind of revolves around this idea of escapism, both as a hobby and an identity or passion. Escapism in society kind of relates more towards people's hobbies, and hobbies are ultimately actions or interests that divert from normal everyday work life, or in this case, something that capitalism despises. And the furry fandom is probably one of the most unique hobbies that provides an escape for its community. This escapism creates true self-expression and allows for people to be themselves comfortably around others, which can in turn cause the fandom to become a big part of one's own life, as they become happier and more comfortable with their identity or being who they really are. Now, as a disclaimer, this idea of escapism and clinging to it can be unhealthy, and for the fandom, escapism can also be a double-edged sword, and we'll go over that topic in a separate video, but I just wanted to mention it now for you guys to think upon and figure out what that means. For the younger audience, the furry fandom will probably be an escape for you to express yourself, and you'll genuinely feel more attached to it when you start. I was the same even though I started late, because the real world that kids are thrust into nowadays is so extremely toxic and hateful. Like, have you been to high school? Or just even school in general? People suck and they're awful to one another. But I digress. Overall, everyone's definition of a furry, even for the furries themselves, is going to be unique, and it's going to capture pretty much all of their experiences in the fandom at conventions, meeting your friends for the first time, getting to hug a fursuiter, the late night calls with those friends, and getting to see them at the next big con again. But for the sake of closure in this video, what does it truly mean to be a furry? In my opinion, being a furry means that you have a greater sense of community and togetherness. The furry fandom is a place to belong and feel welcome without judgment. It's a place to find some of the best friends in the world and make some of the most amazing connections with the most creative people ever. But above all, it's a place that has a high regard for community. The community and relationships created from it is the final reason why people stay and why people love it. They come for the cute and fluffy animals and cartoons, or the horny fluffy animals and cartoons, and they stay for the community, at least from what I've seen. If there's anything I know about each and every furry I've met, is that they have a tendency to wear their hearts on their sleeves. But even above that, the amount of sympathy they express is absolutely incredible. As you age, the magic of the fandom may remain the same, or for a lot of people, it'll more than likely move into the hobby territory with a strong sense of community. So it may slow down to a hobby, or that sense of community and love might actually maintain that identity portion. Using it as the opportunity to discover oneself also allows for it to become a part of who you are and the experiences that come with it. But ultimately, a furry is a mix between a hobby and an identity, with a strong sense of community and compassion for one another, and a love for cartoon animals. You can't forget the last portion. In the end, regardless of what you do or what level of being a furry you might find yourself on, just enjoy it. Keep experiencing life, guys. And on that note, thank you all for watching. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments below as always. I want to also give a big thank you to my friends Soatalk, Arcantale, and PebbleFox for helping me out with this video. I was doing a bit of research on the whole psychological aspect and just scripting in general, so Arcantale and PebbleFox were a big help with that, but it just so happened that Soatalk actually wrote an article on what it means to be a furry from his perspective, and that was a big help with this video entirely. I guess on another note, even though I did promote this in the last video, I actually do have a new plush available on my merch store. We actually just covered all the pre-orders, so we're able to order them in bulk and send them off, and I think we have 50 or so left. It's a brand new design that Amy and I worked on, and I'm really happy with how this new 2.0 Maverick plush looks. So if you want to help support me directly and get a little bit from it, whether it's a little sticker from my merch store, or you want a little Maverick plush, a little wagon plush to hug and cuddle, the link will be down below to my merch page. So besides that, I've got nothing else. Have an awesome day, guys. And as always, stay life jacket. Take care.